36. That's the latest statistic from the CDC regarding children in the United States identified with autism spectrum disorder. But here's the part that keeps pediatricians awake at night. Nearly half of those children aren't diagnosed until after age 4, even though many parents sensed something was different before their child's second birthday. If you're sitting in your living room, whether in Chicago, Dallas, or a quiet suburb anywhere, watching your toddler play and wondering why they don't quite connect the way the parenting books describe, this episode is for you. Today, we're not looking for the loud signs, we're listening for the whispers, the subtle indicators that often go unnoticed, not because parents don't care, but because no one told them what to look for. This might be the most important 10 minutes of your week. Most parents are told to watch for obvious behaviors, hand flapping, no eye contact at all, being completely nonverbal. But those are often the loudest signs, and because of that, thousands of families fall into what I call the wait and see trap. They think, well, he makes eye contact sometimes. She says a few words. He hugs me every night. So it can't be autism, right? This is where the system quietly fails families. Parents are trained to look for what's missing, a deficit model. But autism is often about differences in the quality of social interaction, not just the absence of skills. From Manhattan high-rises to California playgrounds, well-meaning relatives often say, "Boys just talk later." Don't worry, he'll grow out of it. But time matters. When we ignore subtle mechanics of social communication, we lose precious months, sometimes years, of early intervention. And the first 3 years of life are a neurological goldmine. Brain plasticity during this window is extraordinary. Every month counts. Autism is not a lack of love. It's not a lack of emotion. It's a difference in how the brain prioritizes social information. In a neurotypical brain, the social radar is always on. If a loud noise happens, the child looks at the sound, then immediately looks at their parent's face to read the reaction. That check-in is automatic. In an autistic brain, the radar may be tuned differently. The child might notice the sound, but not automatically reference the parent's face. Research from the Yale Child Study Center found that infants later diagnosed with autism began showing subtle declines in eye fixation as early as 2 months old, 2 months. But the change was so subtle that it required specialized eye tracking technology to detect. The gap between what is happening neurologically and what we can see with the naked eye is enormous. Experts like Dr. Ami Klin have demonstrated that while a typical child scans the eyes to interpret emotion, an autistic child may focus more on the mouth or chin, areas that feel more predictable. They are not ignoring you. They're processing a world that feels overwhelming and chaotic. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine a mother named Sarah in downtown Chicago. Her 18-month-old son, Leo, was what many would call a dream baby. He rarely cried. He could sit independently with blocks for an hour. He didn't demand much attention. Sarah thought she had simply gotten lucky. But one afternoon at a local playgroup, she noticed something. Other toddlers ran to their parents to show them a rock, a flower, a toy. They shared their excitement. Leo stayed in the corner. He wasn't upset. He wasn't withdrawn. He just didn't feel the urge to share his joy. That missing urge, that lack of joint attention, is often the first quiet sign. Today, I'm introducing a framework to help you organize these subtle observations. It's called the SIGNALS framework. Sharing imitation gestures, name response, atypical play, language, nuance, social referencing. Let's walk through them. Sign 1, the missing look back. When your child is playing with something they love, do they look up to see if you're watching? A typical child creates a 3-way connection. The toy, you, back to the toy. If your child remains completely locked into the object, even when happy, and behaves as though you aren't in the room, That's a quiet indicator. Sign 2, functional versus sharing pointing. Many parents say, my child points. Yes, but why? If they point only to get something, juice, snacks, toys, that's functional pointing. But do they point just to show you something interesting? A plane in the sky? A dog across the street? Pointing to share interest is very different from pointing to request. Sign 3, the hand as a tool. Gesture instead of pointing or asking, does your child grab your hand and place it on what they want? Your hand becomes a mechanical device. In that moment, they are using you as a tool, not engaging you as a social partner. It's subtle, but important. Sign 4, inconsistent response to name. If you call your child's name and they don't respond to poiko, but they immediately react to a snack bag crinkling, that's not necessarily hearing loss. That's social prioritization. The brain may be tuning into sensory rewards more than social cues. Sign 5, lack of imitation. Does your child copy your clapping, your silly faces, your pretend sneeze? Imitation is how children learn socially. If mirroring isn't emerging by 12 to 15 months, that's worth noting. Sign 6, atypical toy use. Instead of rolling the car, do they flip it over and spin the wheels repeatedly? Do they line up toys rigidly and become distressed if moved? This reflects interest in parts over the whole, mechanics over imagination. Sign 7, fleeting eye contact. It's not absent, it's brief, transactional. They may look at you to get something, but not to read emotion. Sign 8, sensory seeking, listening to vibrations, watching lights from the corner of their eye, unusual fascination with textures or movement. These sensory patterns often accompany autism. Sign 9, echolalia, repeating phrases instead of answering questions. Do you want milk? Do you want milk? It sounds like language, but it's repetition, not conversation. Sign 10, the stop and watch test. Start playing with your child. Create a rhythm, then suddenly stop. A typically developing child will look at you, checking in, asking nonverbally, why did you stop? A child struggling with social referencing may stare at the toy or move your hand physically without looking at your face. That face check is the bridge of social communication. If you notice these signs, don't panic. Observe, track. Log behaviors for 4 weeks. When you visit your pediatrician, bring data, not just intuition. Instead of saying, I think something is wrong, you can say, in 10 trials of name calling, response was 10%. Proto-declarative pointing is not present. That language changes conversations. And remember, autism is a spectrum. A child can be affectionate and still struggle socially. They can hug deeply and still have difficulty with reciprocity. If it's nothing, evaluation provides reassurance. If it is autism, early intervention changes trajectories. There's no downside to checking. Tonight, sit on the floor. Try the stop and watch test. Notice the check-in. Trust your instincts. You are your child's best advocate, and paying attention now could change everything.